And joining us now, the head coach of the UCF Baseball program, getting set for opening night against Siena. Great tradition. He's always been kind to us, and every year to talk some baseball, among other things. I speak of Greg Lovelady, who joins us. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing? Appreciate y'all having me.
Doing good. Let's talk about it. How has this fall and gone as you get set now for the season? You got about just about give and take a half the team back from a team that won 35 games, considering a ton of adversity with the injuries, including on the pitching staff. How is this year's team kind of outlook looking?
I think really good. I'm excited about this group. We just have a great mix of age and experience, mixed with talent and some big transfers, and also mixed with some younger guys that either were on the team last year and just expected to have bigger roles, or freshmen. I think it's a great mix. I think we're a lot deeper, obviously, just with the one, just because I think we set it up better, just to avoid hoping to have a kind of a repeat of last year's injuries, but also we're just healthy right now. This time last year we had really already started the kind of injury bug and had already lost like 4 or 5 guys for the season, just either late in the fall or in January. Um, at this point we're fairly healthy. We're in a good spot, but we have the depth to do that. And again, you kind of mentioned it, but I'm really proud of last year's team for winning 35 games and coming in second place in conference, and really doing that with 5 or 6 of your best players missing at least half the year or the whole year. And so I think that it showed our guys, like how to handle adversity, which I think is going to help this year. At the same time, though, I think the depth and the experience that a lot of guys got last year, puts us in a good spot. And now we just got to go out and show everybody what we're made of.
Well, let's talk a little bit of some of their positions. Let's start with the outfield. It's going to be strange not to have Jeffrey Pena there overseeing things at center field, but you do bring back Butterker. Just talk about your outfield outlook there as well, with some new faces there in the mix.
Yeah, obviously having Lex back, playing almost every day as a freshman last year and having the success he has had, like that just gives us somebody that again has that experience, and obviously a year older, and understanding, kind of the what the grind is like and what to expect will be a huge help for us. We brought in Corey Robinson, who is a transfer from the University of Florida, a local kid in DeLand. They had some good playing time there last year, but we're just looking for a different experience. And, he kind of had our best fall offensively. And so had a lot of success in the fall. Very similar to Jeffrey in terms of skill set. One of, if not the fastest kid on our team. Has the ability to play center field, can play right, but has some power, ability to change the game with his legs and bunt. So that's going to be obviously an opportunity. Matt Cedarberg transferred in from Southern Miss. He was a local junior college kid at College of Central Florida, from Florida. That has had a good fall for us, a good early season, that has an opportunity to play. Brady Shannon, is really a special freshman that has the ability to really be a really special player here. Just the power, the size, a sports star in high school, and hit some monster home runs in the fall. So I think he has the ability to really kind of be a future middle of the order guy for us. And then you obviously have John Rice Plumley. Very similar to his football pedigree, like just is able to, a super athlete, can change the game with his legs, can, even in a short amount of time being able to practice with us, just dropping some bump base hits and running balls down in the outfield. So obviously he is so athletic that it's amazing how quickly the swing and just the baseball legs underneath him are coming back so fast. Not playing obviously all fall, and really not playing much last spring, just because of he was ineligible due to the transfer rule. So, his leadership and the things that he brings is special. So obviously he's another guy that I expect to get a ton of playing time, if not starting for us on opening day. So, those guys really have done a great job, and just kind of excited to see, how they all kind of play when the lights come on.
Do you have a comparison of JRP as a baseball player, a guy? I mean, which is such a unique situation because you don't have him in the fall. You have him. He's great speed, which fits your team identity because you love to be aggressive on the base pads. So I would imagine he's a big part of that too, and that nice fit. Do you have a comp of somebody you've coached similar to him?
I mean, he is similar to Jeffrey, just more physical than Jeffrey. So I mean, I think he has a little bit more natural power than Jeffrey does, but from a defensive and speed and the things that he's trying to do, like I think they're very similar. So you had Trent Taylor and Jeffrey Pena in the outfield last year that just really shrunk the amount of acreage in the outfield that was, that balls were able to fall. And I think if you have Corey and JRP in the lineup, like that's very similar in terms of those two guys being able to, they're going to be two, not only the fastest guys on our team, but they might be two of the fastest guys in our conference and maybe two of the fastest guys in the country in terms of college baseball. So it definitely, whether they're starting or whether they're playing there late in the game, it definitely shrinks the field and makes us a much better defensive outfield.
Coach, you're bringing back an infield this year where just brimming, at least as far as returners go, and then of course the freshmen that I've seen at the fall seem to have really gotten off to a strong footing. What can you say about this year's infield, and how do you think you're going to able to sift through to see who ends up starting where?
Yeah, I mean it's a really talented group, and it's good to have some age and experience on there. And it's an interesting age and experience though, because it's guys that, a couple guys that have really been banged up in their career here. Andrew Brait is always been one of the best defenders on our team, and just had some really bad luck. Gets hit in the face and breaks his orbital bone 2 years ago. He started half the games as a true freshman at short, breaks his orbital bone in year two, and then last fall, just swinging, pops his shoulder out and needs to have labrum surgery and fix his left shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, and misses most of the year last year. So to have him back, I mean, just a plus defender, can play any position on the infield, but somebody that really understands the pace of the game and understands like what the infield position needs. And offensively, he's always done well when he has got an opportunity to play, whether it was as a freshman, whether it was in the fall. We had really high hopes for him 2 years ago before he got hit in the face. And then obviously last year, just the same thing, kind of high hopes in the fall, and he was having a great fall, and then obviously gets hurt. So he's just a guy that can really give us the leadership and just of how to prepare, how to go about your business. Nick Romano at first base, having him back is obviously huge. I mean, he's been one of our best hitters for the last 3 years, and obviously tearing his ACL after the huge start that he had for us the first 2 weeks was really a blow to our offense. But to have him back and healthy and be able to get his bat going is going to be a middle of the order guy. Tom Jostin, ability to play second base. Tom gives us a lot of versatility. He can play infield or outfield, but a guy that's been starter for us. Really 2020 he came in and started and got off to a good start, and then obviously gets 2 more huge years and a ton of at bats, and just the experience, the power, the ability to play second base or the outfield. And then you got Drew Farrow and Greg Pate, who are 2 really talented freshmen. Drew has the ability, I mean, he's very similar because he's a switch hitter and he has the ability of Alex Freeland. From a tool standpoint, he's farther along than Alex Freeland was at this age, their freshman years. Drew, again, a big time football player in high school. So, we'll be interested to see how he handles the game situations and whatnot, where Alex was an absolute gamer. Drew's a little bit farther ahead on the tool side. So we'll kind of, time will tell in terms of how he handles the game. Matt Cedarberg, also, I mentioned in the outfield, he has the ability to play the infield as well. So again, gives us some more versatility, but really excited about all those guys. And we think that it's going to give us a talented and experienced infield.
Well, you mentioned Nick Romano playing first base. While he was injured, Ben McCabe saw a lot of
Yeah.
time there at first base. Of course, the roster lists him as a catcher, and I don't
Yeah.
believe since I've covered you guys, I don't remember seeing him behind the plate much. So, can you talk about how you're going to be able to utilize Ben this year if Nick is going to be back at first?
Yeah, so Ben was expected to be our starting catcher last year. Ben caught a ton 2 years ago, in the kind of the weird year in 21 with the COVID stuff and the way we had no midweek games when conference started. Ben started half the games before conference started, and then Josh Crouch really turned into who he ended up being, and at that point Nick had gotten hurt, and so Ben started playing a little bit of first base and DHing every game. And then last year, Ben ended up hurting his arm and needing arm surgery. And so he was supposed to DH the whole year, and then Nick gets hurt again. And so he got forced into the first base role, and we really had to try to protect him and try to hide the fact that he couldn't throw. So it was an interesting year for us to have somebody at first base that was really unable to make a throw more than lobbing it back and forth around the infield. So Ben had surgery at the end of last season in June. He held off. He wanted to make sure he wanted to play. He wanted to hit. He knew he could at least DH and did a great job for us. But he's back behind the plate and able to do both. He still works out at first base. Obviously, just don't want to push Nick too much if we feel like he needs a DH for a day or whatnot, and days that Ben's not catching, then he has the ability to play. Ben has the ability to play first base, so you'll probably see Ben at both catcher and first base. But excited to have Ben healthy. His arm looks great, and obviously having again that bat in the lineup, a guy that has double-digit home runs the last 2 years, really gives us that age, experience, and even behind the plate, just knowing that he knows what he's doing and can do all that is awesome.
Well, last year, of course, you had Andrew Sundin kind of pushed into service, and he ended up really running with it. I see now you have a solid depth as far as catcher. Now that you have Ben back, you also have Riley Parker, Keanu Suarez, and of course Sundin coming back. So, what can you say about this group of catchers?
Yeah, so my catching group is really deep. Obviously, Andrew is hurt. He had surgery in the fall. Will probably miss, I don't know, the first month of the season maybe. We don't really have a timeline for that, but he will be back at some point. We just don't know. So again, having the depth. Cole Russo caught a lot of games last year. He's back. Has the ability to play third or first or catch. And then obviously Ben and Riley Parker is a freshman, and Keanu who we picked up. So we have depth. We feel like we have 5 guys that can catch, but definitely have 3 guys that between Ben and Andrew and Cole that have caught before, that understand the position, that give us some depth, give us some versatility, because 2 of them can play multiple positions, and obviously give us some offensive firepower. So, and especially when we get Andrew back at some point, that will bring another experienced bat into the lineup. So just kind of excited about the depth at the catching position as well.
I'm curious, with obviously the adversity with the injuries. You mentioned Ben McCabe when you had to move him to first and DH.
Yeah.
Can that pay off here in the long term? Because it's bringing you versatility. Is that the positive? You got to take some positive from all the adversity you had with the injuries. Is that the positive, that now you got guys that have more versatility and experience that out of necessity?
Yeah, no doubt. I think just going through the adversity last year and understanding that I think early in the year when we lost Nick, and then we had lost Hunter and stuff, and I felt like the team just was kind of like, oh my gosh, like Ben's hurt, now Nick's hurt, and we kind of were going through this like, woe is me, like everything's going wrong, like things are, and we just had to really get them to focus on just trying to get better, like trust the people that are now playing, like they're here for a reason, they're good enough. So I thought that was great. But then again, obviously, getting guys to play different positions and whatnot is always, we didn't know about Andrew Sundin until the injuries happened. So it really was an opportunity for us to push some guys and maybe put them in the lineup that weren't expecting to be there, which then gave them experience. So it really changed our team in terms of that going into this year, where we're more experienced. We've had a lot of guys that got great time last year. Now we're getting healthier, so it gives us depth. It gives us the ability to do different things positionally or days off or whatever the case is. But it also gives us the ability that in case there are injuries, which there's going to be at some point, somebody's going to have a something that misses a game or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the case is. I feel like we're in a position now where we're not going to be having to thrust inexperienced people into the lineup, but we're going to have the depth to be able to put experienced people in there.
Well, speaking of injuries, those really hit your pitching squad last season with Connor and with Connor getting the way he was,
Hunter Patterson,
and Hunter as well. So, what can you say about this year's pitching squad? What do you think? What do you think is going to be different about that this season as opposed to last season? And who do you think we could see a lot of that's in store for a good year?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I just think that there was a lot of guys that got some experience last year that are just a little bit older, and what it does is just gives us the depth. So, even Rudy Gomez last year has the torn ACL, his late in his junior college career, comes to us. He misses the entire fall. He is trying to get comfortable with the knee and the brace and all that kind of stuff. And the first half of the year was just very average. And then by the second half of the year, he was one of our best pitchers. And so he really stepped up. Well, now he's able to have a full healthy year, a full healthy fall, really kind of hopefully going to start where he finished off and has a chance to be in our rotation. Ben Vespi, again, had a great freshman year. He has to step in and be the ace of the staff once those injuries go down. Did a great job late. So now he kind of has not only that experience of being a bullpen and a swing guy, but then he gets to start, I think the last, 8 weeks of the season and did a great job. So now he has the starting experience. He can put himself in a spot for a rotation. Nick Vieira misses last year. He's back and has had a great fall or whatnot, but Cam Crane and Dom Stagliano, Dom Castellano, those two guys had a ton of opportunities last year. They're way more experienced. And so Kyle Kramer's back, who had a ton of save opportunities last year. Again, a guy that had made the transition from D2 to D1. So now that he's been in the program for over a year, and knows, again, what this is all about, you just feel really good about him. And then we brought in a couple transfers that I think have an opportunity to be a big-time part of our team. Najir Victor, who was a dominant force at Florida Gulf Coast. Dom Stagliano, who was a freshman All-American at Stetson. And so you got those two guys, Zach Chappell, who's a fifth-year guy from North Florida, who brings a ton of experience. And then Zach Austin, who was a Division II transfer from a school up in Pennsylvania, who was a two-way player, a hitter as well, has given up hitting to really focus on pitching. And he might have the best stuff on our entire team and have the ability to really be a breakout guy, just learning how to pitch and learning how to do it on a daily basis at this level. He's going to have some maybe growing pains early, but he's definitely the type of guy that, has the ability to really change the end of the game for us. And so you got him, and then Cam Leiter, who's an absolute game-changing type pitcher as a freshman. The lineage and all that is there, but the stuff is there. I mean, again, he's a guy that has the top 2 or 3 stuff on our team. And so just getting him to kind of understand, we gave him 2 starts in the fall games just to try to understand the routine and understand what it takes to prepare yourself for those moments. And so he has the ability to start for us. Jacob Marlowe, again, last year, I don't even think Jacob Marlowe traveled the first couple road trips. And because of the injuries, and again, he had missed the fall, he got healthy and then really started to gain the confidence, and we started putting him in more and more games. And at the end of the year, he was one of our best, him and Rudy and Ben were really our 3 best pitchers, I feel like, other than, starting or bullpen guys. And so now he has a ton of experience, has really made great strides, is really vying for a starting job on one of our 4 starters. So we feel like we're getting the depth and the experience that we need, and guys that have had to pitch last year, guys that are getting healthier, guys that are now having a full year of health. And then obviously guys, again, like Cam Leiter that, just from a freshman standpoint, have the ability to really help us. So I think when you start adding those all together, there's a depth. we're much deeper than last year, so we can give guys breaks and not have to use them too much. We're set up in case we have to deal with some injuries, but we also have the age and experience to be able to perform at a high level. So we're definitely in a much better spot than we were last year.
I'm curious with Cam, and for those that don't know, obviously he's related to Al Leiter, Mark Leiter, part of a Leiter factory. They've done incredible for baseball. Jack Leiter, his cousin. I'm curious. He's obviously been around baseball a lot in his entire life. Do you see that in him as a freshman? Does that give him a little bit more of an advantage knowing that he's been around the sport versus maybe another freshman that hasn't been around professional baseball, perhaps like he has?
Yeah, I think that the game changes obviously at every level that you go to. It just gets more in depth. It gets a lot more cerebral. And so I think that most freshmen come in and they just think like it's going to be like high school, and I'm just going to go out there and throw, and it's just not. Like there's a process and there's a learning and there's a at practice and in bullpens, like you have to have a plan, and you have to try to get better every single day. And it's not just go through the motions. It's not just, well, I'm better than the other team. Like there's a growth process that you have to go through. And so when you just watch him though, when he comes in, like he just talks a little bit differently, talks a little bit more maturely in terms of, of the game, understands that growth mindset, I think a little bit more because he's just been around it and been taught from a family that has multiple big leaguers, and his dad played professionally. So I mean, you're talking about not only does he have uncles that play in the big leagues, but he's got 2 cousins in the big leagues. And so he's just, even though he grew up in Canada, so he wasn't really around the game, he just was around people that understood the game, and that, they have him on speed dial. So when he has a problem or he has something that he doesn't understand, he can call. There was a story, and it didn't really have to do with him getting better, but it was just a funny story of all of our players were eating dinner in the nutrition center in the fall, and they had some argument about who was better between a couple guys. And so he just FaceTimed Al in front of everybody to let Al make the decision, since he was like, it was like, who's a better major league pitcher, this guy or this guy? And Al, doing what he does and being in the big leagues, they like just FaceTimed him to get his input in it. So it's just, be able to do that, to talk to a guy that pitched in the big leagues for 20 years or whatever it is, like just gives him some extra knowledge and the ability in the growth process. But when you go and watch him prepare and throw a bullpen, like from the first time I saw him, it was like, man, this guy he acts differently on the mound. He thinks differently on the mound. He's just a little bit more cerebral, a little bit farther ahead. He's acting more like a junior in terms of how he goes about his business, how he prepares in those situations. So, I'm excited. I think he obviously has a really bright future, and I'm glad he's going to be pitching for us.
Well, the guy that's going to be coaching him and all the rest of the pitchers is Mike Marath, former UCF great, that situation was fascinating because this took place in December when Nick left for a great opportunity with professional baseball, and that's not usual in college baseball. Like 2 months before the season, you got to find a pitching coach. And then the news comes out, you hire Mike Marath. And my reaction is like, wow, that's awesome. We got the UCF alums were excited because you got one of theirs. I saw him pitch. But then you got people like Bryson, who's a Braves fan, who's shocked. He's like, wait a minute. He's in our farm system. There were Braves fans on social media that were upset.
Yeah.
So which clearly tells you how well people received the hire, because he's that good and with the job he's done with the Braves. Take us through that process, and because it's unique. It's not, you've had to replace coaches and things, but not that late, close to a season. So what was that like?
Yeah, it's definitely different. It was very, and again, I'm happy for Nick, and it was a great opportunity for him and his family. And but there's just been a shift. Obviously college baseball and professional baseball, we don't work on the same timelines. Their jobs are November to December, maybe early January. That's when the shifting occurs. The season ends November 1st, and they kind of renew contracts and are hiring people and making changes at the big league level or at the administrative in terms of general manager level. And so then all of a sudden their shifting starts happening, and then jobs start come open, or they make changes, or they don't renew contracts. And then you just get a lot of movement. And obviously there's also been a shift in professional baseball. he's really gone to a much more development-based system, which is what college has kind of been. So a lot of college coaches are getting kind of taken by the professional level. So, I mean, it's just been a shift the last probably 24 months in terms of a lot more college guys finding jobs in professional baseball. So you knew that it was a chance, but you obviously are still just, it's a different dynamic when you're trying to find somebody in January or December than you are when you're trying to find them in the summer, which is when most of our jobs are making those same exact things that the big leagues are doing, November to January. Ours are June and July. So it definitely was I cast a wide net. I mean, I talked to probably 50 different candidates, just trying to, gather information, gather interest, and try to figure out what was going to be the best for this club. And it's a different dynamic because you gotta bring somebody in the middle of the year that the season gets going like immediately. And so you've got to be somebody that you feel like can handle the season starting, and have to try to learn guys, and has that kind of experience. And but at the same time, you also have to look long-term future, like what's going to help us develop guys at a high clip and continue to build off of the success that the pitching staff has had the last couple of years. And so it was really difficult to try to find the candidate you felt like could do all of them, and then have somebody that really cares about this place and really is invested. And so obviously Mike kind of checks all the boxes of a guy that is a UCF alum. He's a local guy here that went to Boone High School, and had a lot of success here, and a third-round draft pick out of UCF, and then obviously pitched in the big leagues. But then has also had a lot of success as a minor league pitching coach, and been able to develop a ton of big leaguers. You look at the Braves pitching staff right now, and all the guys that have gone through their minor leagues, like Max Fried and Spencer Strider, and I'm blanking on a couple of the other guys. All of a sudden, the guy that tore his Achilles, so I mean, all those guys have come up through those minor leagues, and Mike's been a part of their development. So to see that, and to know that, it's just obviously a good opportunity for our players. And he had to hit the ground running. Like, he literally was in the office on Tuesday, and we started practice on Monday, and it was like, man, better watch a lot of, trying to get him as much information, all the video, to be able to catch up and build the relationships and all that. And he's obviously an A+ human being, so that has been a great addition to our program. So it's good to have a UCF guy here, and a guy that cares about developing the program as much as I do, and as much as our whole entire staff does. But a guy that has a different view of, he was part of it, and he was in these players' shoes, and I think that helps him with our guys too.
One unique skill set that I think Maroth brings to this staff. I remember when he was first brought on by the Braves organization, it was as their minor league rehab pitching coordinator. Given, the pitching injuries that have plagued this team for the past 2 seasons, how big is Maroth's skill set coming in to potentially address that those sort of thing, so it's not as big a problem in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's big. Just a guy that has been there and helped rehab guys back. And obviously, we didn't talk about Zach Bennett as a pitcher, was our perceived closer going into the season last year, and ended up, having Tommy John surgery. It was just over a year ago now. So he's making his way back. We'll be ready to go the first few weeks of the season, possibly opening weekend, but he's getting close. So just being able to get him back and help him through that process has been huge. I mean, I think, we hired Kaylee Shores as our new athletic trainer in the off season, and she's been an absolute rock star for our entire team. But really, our pitching staff has just been game changing, and really putting ourselves in a better situation, and from less injuries, and just being healthier, and having a game plan on how we're going to get guys back, but how we're going to keep guys healthy. And just having the synergy with her and Jeremy Fraden, our strength coach, and then obviously when Nick was here, and now with Mike, and just having them all work together has, I felt like, really been a game-changing thing for our entire team. But again, especially our pitching staff, just the knowledge that we have and the ability to put people in the best situations and get them back healthier, keep them healthy. I think it just saw a lot of changes in the fall and early on that have really put us in a much better situation. So I think between Mike and her, has been a great change and a great dynamic to kind of put us on a better spot than we were last year.
See, I told you, Bryson knows everything about the Braves, including what role Mike was hired in. I mean, I knew Mike from UCF, and then when he was with the Florida Flyer Frogs, and we had him on the show. It's just hilarious on there. But you mentioned Zach Bennett, so I want to ask you about the bullpen, because anybody that's followed your program knows how critical it is your bullpen. That's a big part of your success. Tell us a little bit about the bullpen this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we got a deep bullpen and the ability to do some great things. Obviously, Kyle Kramer being back, who had 6 saves for us last year. I didn't mention Chase Santala, who was, again, just a guy that really was his first experience. He had transferred from Florida, had pitched very minimally there for them as a freshman. So last year, really just still kind of learning the ropes in terms of the ups and downs. And he had some unbelievable performances. I mean, the Ole Miss performance where I think he went 5 hitless innings or 4 hitless innings in relief, like that was unbelievable. And so now again, to have him back at kind of the understand and the experience now where you just hope that his, I think he can be a lot more consistent. His stuff has been a little bit better. Like I think that we're going to be able to see the Chase Santala of Ole Miss. We're going to get to able to see him a lot more this year. Najir Victor has the ability to be a back end guy with a swing guy that can throw 2-3 innings. He has starting experience at the D1 level, but he has that power stuff at the end of the game. And so you put that into the mix. Zach Austin, again, probably has the best or second best stuff on our entire team and has the ability to be 94 to 97 miles an hour, the wipeout breaking ball, very Jeff Hakinson-like. But he's still making that transition. So, but he has that ceiling. And so to be able to see a guy, Mike's been able to work with him really. I mean, again, the fall was really trying to get him to understand what the daily routine of pitching was like and not hitting and not having to try to do both. And so I felt like Nick did a great job of preparing for that. And now it was kind of more like, all right, now how can we make some slight adjustments to kind of mechanically and mentally get you to be the great pitcher that the ceiling says you can be. And so again, that power stuff at the end of the game, again, Kyle Kramer, but then you add Zach Chappell, who has a great breaking ball, great guy that can help us at the end of the game with left-handers. Nick Vieira has really made a jump. Again, Nick was a guy that didn't pitch a lot early as a freshman, pitched in the championship game against South Florida in 2001 and did a great job. Obviously gets hurt last year, but spent a lot of time this summer rehabbing and putting himself in a good situation and really made he was one of our best pitchers the entire fall. So he's really made some strides. That gives us again another kind of swing guy that can start, can throw at the end of the game, like can do a bunch of different things. And then again, Jacob Marlowe and Dom Stagliano, who again, Dom was a freshman All-American at Stetson last year as a starter for them. Those guys can be huge swing guys. I mean, I think one or both of them are going to start at some point, whether it's on Sundays or whether that's on Tuesdays or Wednesdays in our midweek games, but also have the ability to not have to have those guys go 7 or 8 innings, but go 3-4 innings on a midweek. Maybe they split it or whatever, but then the ability to throw 1 or 2 innings on the weekends when we need them. So, I mean, again, the depth is really there. And so it's exciting to know that the bullpen has some power stuff. It has guys that are experienced, and it has guys that have pitched at a high level, whether it's that at D1 or at another school or whatever the case is. But it has the ability to be a really dominant back half, and that takes a lot of pressure off the starters. And so Rudy and Cam and Ben and whether it's Jacob or Dom, like those guys, again, just go out there and throw 1 great inning and then go do it again if you can. And if it's 4 great innings and we got to go to the bullpen, we got the depth. And if it's 7 great innings, awesome. Then we got guys at the back end to close the game out. So it just takes a lot of the pressure, I think, off the starters to know that they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be, these huge inning eaters where, man, we have to go 7 or 8 innings. Where last year you felt like, man, like we need, with the injuries, it's like, man, how are we going to get to the end of the game? Like, and we were just trying to put pieces together. Cam Cranes, like those guys, like they just stepped up. And so now it's the ability to, hey, like we've got the horses at the end. We got the horses at the beginning. We feel like we got horses in the middle. Like, just go do your best, go close out the inning. And if we ask you to go do another inning, great. And if not, we'll get somebody else in there to go do the same thing for the next inning. And we feel like in a good situation, again, to overcome any injuries that we have, to give guys rest if they need it, but also have guys that are super talented and power stuff all through the the rotation and the back end.
Coach, looking to the schedule, I noticed when I looked that you actually have 4 national seeds from last year's NCAA baseball tournament on the schedule. ECU, of course, being in conference. Georgia Southern comes here after you beat them in Statesboro last season. Your midweek game against Miami, and then Maryland is also coming to town. So yeah. Can you talk about kind of what went into this year's non-conference schedule and how they can prepare this team for their final season in the American?
Yeah, it's gonna be super challenging. Obviously as baseball coaches, we're kind of like same thing with football, where you're scheduling 3 years in advance sometimes. So you really don't know how good a team is going to be. Obviously, Georgia Southern had a monster year last year. They have most of their team returning. They're going to be out for blood because we go there and take 2 out of 3 in their place last year. So they're going to want revenge. So it's going to be a huge series for us. Obviously, we're starting with Siena, who every year comes in here and is excited to get out of the cold and excited to get the season started. And Tony has done a great job for the last 50 something years of being a college baseball coach. So obviously we're playing the normal midweek games, which are FAU is always a perennial regional team. North Florida has been really tough. We struggled with them last year. Troy, the Sun Belt, has been, probably one of the top 3 or 4 conferences in the country the last few years. And so, Troy, we went to their place 2 years ago and lost 2 out of 3. So it's not going to be an easy weekend. Dartmouth came in here, I think, 4 years ago and took 2 out of 3 from us. They're always a perennial Ivy League champion. So, and then Maryland, obviously ranked 13th, 15th in the country right now. And so having them here is going to be a huge challenge for us. And then obviously having the Miami, we got Florida State at home for 2 games. So it's a challenging schedule. I don't know who's in charge of that, but they should be fired, right? But it's going to be fun and it's challenging. But in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. In order to prepare us for our conference, which again we think is one of the best conferences in the country in the American, to prepare us for ECU, that's what the Maryland at Clemson. So it's going to be a regional type atmosphere at Clemson. So I mean, we really set the schedule up for some difficult games. But I do also feel like we have the experience, we have the age, we have the kind of the team that can handle that and put us in a good situation, not only to win our conference, but put us in a chance to host a regional or put us in a national seed. We just got to go out and show everybody what we're made of and have a lot of fun and just, really focus on winning pitches. And if you do that, we got a chance.
Yeah, Clemson, of course, has their new head coach, Coach Bakich, coming over from Michigan. That was a big story in the offseason. Florida State comes here. Link Jarrett, new head coach there at FSU, with Rich Wallace, former UCF Knight, as his staff. I went to school at the same time he did, so I'm getting old, clearly.
Yeah.
Between him and Mike Maroth, what's going on here? But I'm curious, how is your schedule going to be adjusted or affected when you get to the Big 12? I think you mentioned on Media Day that's 30 conference games for the Big 12. Just explain the Big 12 formula as far as scheduling and how that affects your program, because obviously the American's 24, so that will affect your schedule to some extent.
Yeah, so it adds more weekends of conference play. So in the American, you have 6 non-conference weekends to start the season, and then you go 8 straight conference weekends because we have even number of teams. So we're able to play the last 8 weekends are all conference games. So the Big 12 will have an uneven amount of teams, plus we'll have more teams. So it's going to change a little bit where instead of having 6 non-conference weekends to start the year, we'll only have 3. Then we'll start conference play in week 4 with the odd number. Then one team has a bye every week. So you'll have a bye week mixed in somewhere in those 11 weeks or 11 weeks of conference play. And so you get 3 non-conference weekends and 11 conference weeks with 1 bye week somewhere in there based on the schedule. So you're going to play more conference games, which obviously is fine. It's no big deal. That's just what the schedule is. So just with the number of teams that are different. So the first year or 2, depending on what I guess Texas and Oklahoma do, there'll be 2 teams that we don't play as well. And then once those teams leave, then everyone will play everybody. But it'll be a good challenge. Obviously a lot of great teams in that conference, but I feel like the American has kind of prepared us for that with as many good teams as we have in our conference. So, we'll be excited when that happens in July, but we got a lot of work to do between now and then.
And so it'll be 30 games, even when Oklahoma and Texas leave, whenever they leave, it'll be still 30.
It will not change. It will not change at all.
Does that affect too how your in-state, because you like playing the in-state teams, does that make it more challenging to fit them into the schedule?
I don't think so. Just because they're midweek games, I think we're able to try to continue those games and those rivalries and things like that. So we do plan on keeping the play USF every year, a weekend series. So kind of like Florida, Miami do, kind of like Georgia Tech do, or Clemson, South Carolina, where they're playing a weekend series every year early in the year. We're going to keep that up. I just feel like it's important for the rivalry, and it's obviously an easy commute and things like that. So Billy and I have kind of agreed that we're going to try to continue to do that and continue to play each other. We're playing 6 times, the last couple of years, so obviously that won't happen. It'll go down to 3, but I think that's an important part, and I think it's good for college baseball. And I feel like we have a great rivalry, and they're obviously a great team, so it's going to help us RPI wise and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a good setup, and we'll try to continue to do that.
Couple last things before we let you go. Kind of creative part of the schedule there later in the year as you go to Cincinnati, you play Ohio State and Wright State, which is very familiar there. You coached there, had great success. You and Coach Ball Malone like to just this year playing your former schools. She's playing Boise, you're playing Wright State. I know that's a long ways away, but I'm curious how that all came about, playing in Ohio. Is that just one of those things, hey, we're going to go to Cincinnati, we might as well get some games on there, and then obviously Wright being a special place for you?
Yeah. It just kind of worked out where, we're going to Tulane and then Cincinnati. So it was 2 games on the road. So it's traveling a lot and then coming back and then trying to play a game on Tuesday or Wednesday and then get back on the plane and go to Ohio. School is out. So it's after school, after finals are done. So I just felt like it was a good opportunity for us to instead of traveling back and forth and taking 4 flights and near the end of this, because it's really near the end of the year, and just kind of putting a lot of grind on the guys in terms of, sleeping and all that kind of stuff. I felt like this was a better situation. And so, obviously just called my contacts up there with the teams that I knew were going to be around the area, all over Indiana, Ohio, and just tried to figure out who could play and could fit it in so that we could just go straight from Tulane to Cincinnati or to Ohio or wherever and try to fit in 2 midweek games late in the year, and just give us an opportunity to kind of not travel as much, but at the same time get a challenging schedule and get on the road and just kind of prepare us maybe for a regional or the conference tournament. And so it just worked out well, where it was like, hey, instead of going Tulane, come back, try to play a game, and then get back on a plane and fly again, let's just fly straight. And so we end up able to find 2 games in midweeks, which I thought was just going to make it worthwhile to do that. And you're not playing 1 midweek game, but 2, so it makes the whole trip worthwhile. So, and obviously going back to Wright State, that wasn't originally the game plan, but it'll be exciting for me. I really haven't put a ton of thought into it just because it's so far ahead, and I'm just really worried about opening day and trying to get the guys ready. But I'm sure when the time comes, I'll be excited to go back and see a lot of people, and obviously the staff there that I'm still friends with and whatnot. And probably a bunch of alums will be around. So it'll be good, but it'll be a good challenge for us. They're obviously really good, and Ohio State will be really good. So it'll be a good challenge for us to get on the road for 11 days and play, 8 really, really tough opponents on the road.
One big new offseason news in the NCAA there. They've passed the full volunteer position becoming a full-time position, which will affect softball and baseball full-time. That's something that's been talked about in baseball for a few years. I remember you were very vocal when it didn't pass a few years ago about it. Now it's finally passed. Your reaction?
Yeah, I just think it's good for our game. It's just going to give more people opportunities to go out recruiting, to kind of build their resume, to get on the road and get the experience that they need. That's just going to end up being better for our game. I think it opens up more minority opportunities. So I just think for our game, having people like that are going to be in more programs are just going to be better for the players. To have more full-time coaches that are going to be around them, give them a better experience. It's going to allow more coaches to have more time at home, now that you have an extra person on the road, so your family life balance is going to be better. And like I said, it's going to open up more opportunities for coaching candidates. So I just think from a totality standpoint, for the players, for the programs, for the coaches, for the just longevity and just the betterment of our game, I just think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad that we finally got it done.
You used a little bit of replay last year. How'd you feel about instant replay during conference games and so forth? And moving forward, what you expect? What do you want to see from instant replay?
Yeah, I just think it's just part of the game now. And again, umpires are not perfect, and it's just opportunity for when certain situations arise, especially late in the game when the moment is really big, that we just make sure we get the call right, make sure that the kids are rewarded for doing the right thing. I think it's just obviously with technology now, it's just so easy to do it. I don't feel like it slows the game down too much. but to make sure that we get calls right and whatnot. So I think it's a big part of our game now, and I think it's a great part.
And then the last question I have to ask you: are you on Team Sami Zayn or Team Cody Rhodes, who should beat Roman Reigns for the title?
I just love the Sami Zayn storyline. It's been awesome to watch and follow and stuff. So hopefully he can make it happen. And but I was really hoping The Rock was going to do it. But
you said The Rock. It just didn't happen. He's too focused on the movies. He can't. He says he's not fit enough, which is kind of what a problem to have. He's as fit as he is in training, and yet he says he's not wrestling fit.
Right. That seems not impossible, but such is life.
It is just such as life. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We're excited. UCF Baseball gets going against Siena opening night. Check out UCFKnights.com for all the details. Coach, always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll see you out there at the park, and thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me. Have a great day.